It is just after 3 in the morning on the 13th of December, 2023, and a delivery driver named Fabien Accidini is easing his van along a rain-soaked road in the foothills of the Pyrenees, on his way to drop off medicine to a pharmacy near the small French town of Revel. The headlights catch something ahead on the shoulder, a shape moving slowly through the downpour. It is a teenage boy, soaked through, carrying a backpack and a skateboard, a flashlight in his hand. He looks exhausted, haggard, alone. Fabien slows the van and offers him a ride. The boy tells him he has been walking for days. He says his name. Fabien does not recognize it at first, but something about the boy's manner makes him uneasy enough to check. He pulls out his phone, types the name into a search engine, and the boy's face, years younger, blonde, smiling for a school photograph, appears on his screen beside the word missing. Fabien is looking at Alex Batty, a British boy who vanished from a family holiday in Spain more than 6 years earlier, at the age of 11. Instead of driving him further into the mountains, Fabien turns the van toward the nearest police station. Alex borrows Fabien's phone. He does not call. He writes a message on Facebook to a woman in Oldham, Greater Manchester, who has waited 6 years for exactly this moment. "Hello, Grandma," he types. "It's me, Alex. I'm in France, Toulouse. I really hope that you receive this message. I love you. I want to come home." To understand how an 11-year-old boy from a quiet town in the north of England came to be walking alone through a French mountain range in the rain 6 years later, the story has to rewind, past the headlines, past the search parties, all the way back to a family holiday that was never supposed to end this way. Before we go further, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city in the comments. Somewhere out there, someone might have crossed paths with Alex Batty during the years he spent moving through Morocco, Spain, and southern France without a name the authorities could trace, and even a small memory could still matter to the people who love him. Alex Batty was born on the 13th of February 2006 and grew up in Oldham, in Greater Manchester. For most of his childhood, he was not raised by his mother, Melanie Batty, but by his maternal grandmother, Susan Caruana, who held legal guardianship over him. The precise reasons behind that arrangement were never laid out in detail in the public record, but Susan Caruana spoke openly, in the years that followed, about concerns over the kind of life Melanie wanted for her son. In 2014, when Alex was 8 years old, his mother and grandfather had already taken him to a commune in Morocco for a period, part of what Susan Caruana would later describe as her daughter's pursuit of an alternative lifestyle, one that rejected mainstream schooling and conventional structure. Alex came home from that trip. His grandmother continued to raise him in Oldham. Whatever tension existed between the two households, it had not yet cost the family the boy at the center of it. What little the public record shows of Alex as a child before 2017 is thin, filtered mostly through a handful of family photographs Greater Manchester police would later release during their search for him. A fair-haired boy in a white-collared polo shirt, smiling for the camera in a living room in Oldham. He was, in the words used by those who knew him, an ordinary boy in an extraordinary custody arrangement, living a conventional life with his grandmother while his mother pursued something else entirely. Now that you know a little about who Alex Batty was before everything changed, does his story remind you of anyone you know, a family pulled in two directions by different ideas of what's best for a child? Tell me in the comments. Keeping the person behind the headline in view is part of why these cases still matter. On the 30th of September 2017, Melanie Batty and her father, David Batty, left Greater Manchester with Alex for what had been arranged as a week-long holiday to Marbella, on Spain's southern coast. There was nothing in the trip's planning, as far as the public record shows, that marked it out as unusual. It was a pre-agreed visit, the kind of holiday grandmothers grant reluctantly and mothers plan hopefully. Alex was last confirmed seen on the 8th of October 2017 at the port of Málaga, the very day the three of them were expected to board a return flight to the UK. They did not come home. Susan Caruana raised the alarm, and Greater Manchester Police opened what would become one of the force's longest-running missing person investigations. Neither Melanie Batty nor David Batty held legal guardianship of Alex at the time. Under the custody arrangement that had been in place for years, only Susan Caruana had that authority. That distinction mattered enormously to the case that followed. This was not, in the eyes of the law, a family disagreement over where a child should live. It was, potentially, a child taken by two adults who had no legal right to keep him. Investigators traced the family's confirmed movements to Málaga and then lost them. There was no trail beyond the port, no further sightings, no financial trace, no contact from Melanie or David to anyone back in England. Susan Caruana told the BBC, in an interview given the following year, that she believed her daughter and ex-husband had taken Alex to live once again with a spiritual community, this time somewhere in Morocco, echoing the pattern of the 2014 trip, except this time there was no return date. She said plainly that the two of them did not want Alex enrolled in what she called mainstream school, and that they were chasing a different belief system entirely, one built around rejecting the institutions most families take for granted. Greater Manchester Police issued public appeals timed to Alex's birthdays, a grim annual ritual that would repeat for 6 consecutive years. On his 12th birthday, in February 2018, officers renewed calls for information, describing an active line of inquiry that the boy may have been taken to Melilla, a Spanish city bordering northern Morocco, and from there into the country itself. Extensive inquiries, an international appeal, and assistance from Spanish authorities failed to produce a confirmed trace. By his 13th birthday, in 2019, Susan Caruana was describing herself to the press as broken. Detective Constable Declan O'Reilly of Greater Manchester Police told reporters that the safest place for Alex was with his grandmother, and that she was absolutely desperate for his return. Melanie Batty, then 38, and David Batty, 59, remained wanted in connection with the alleged abduction. Their whereabouts stayed unknown. Investigators had traced the family as far as the port of Málaga, and then the trail simply stopped. No confirmed sightings, no paper trail, nothing for years. What do you think happened to a family that could disappear that completely for that long? Drop your theory in the comments. There is little in the researched record to describe, in detail, what those years looked like day to day for Susan Caruana, beyond the public statements she gave around each birthday appeal. Pleas that grew shorter on new information and longer on grief. 2 years before Alex resurfaced, she posted a message to him on Facebook that would later be widely reported. "It's been years of torture. My heart is broken. I love you so much, I just need to know you're okay. I hope I will see you again someday. I would give anything just for one hug." There was no way to know, at the time she wrote it, whether her grandson would ever read it. Greater Manchester Police kept the case open through all 6 years, periodically renewing appeals and coordinating with international counterparts. But a boy who had vanished at 11, with 2 adults determined to keep him off any official record, is extraordinarily difficult to trace across borders. No school enrollment meant no paper trail. No fixed address meant no easy surveillance. The investigation did not go cold in the sense of losing active attention. Greater Manchester Police maintained it as a live case throughout. But it went cold in the sense that matters most to a family waiting. No new information arrived for years at a time. For 6 years, Alex Batty's grandmother waited without knowing whether he was alive, and without so much as a phone call to tell her either way. If you've ever had to wait, for news, for justice, for someone to come home, I want to hear about it in the comments. That kind of patience deserves to be acknowledged. What was actually happening to Alex during those years would only become clear after his return, pieced together from his own account to French and British investigators and later to journalists. He, his mother, and his grandfather lived what he would describe as a nomadic life, moving frequently from house to house, often staying with other families, rarely more than a season in any one place. They spent roughly the first 2 years in Morocco before making their way through Spain and into southwestern France. From 2021 onward, they settled into a pattern of movement in and around the Pyrenees Mountains, on the French side of the border. Alex told investigators the three of them had joined what he called a spiritual community of roughly 10 people, where discussions of reincarnation and long stretches of meditation were part of daily life. The group grew its own food and relied on solar panels for power, panels the adults would carry with them from one temporary home to the next. Toulouse's assistant public prosecutor, Antoine Leroy, briefing journalists after Alex's discovery, described a household where the group worked on the ego, where there was no connection with the real world, and where reincarnation was a genuine, discussed belief. Leroy was careful in his language. This was not, he said, a sect in the way the word is often used. He stopped short of describing it as a cult, but a spiritual community, with practices well outside the mainstream. He noted, too, that Melanie Batty carried what he called a fear of solar panels, one of several details that painted a picture of a household organized around beliefs Alex, as he grew older, increasingly did not share. Alex did not attend a single day of formal school during those 6 years. We're about to reach the moment everything changed. The night a stranger's headlights found a boy nobody had seen in 6 years. What do you think finally pushed him to leave? Drop your guess in the comments before we get there. By his own account, Alex began to have doubts about the life he was living somewhere around the age of 14 or 15. The certainty that had defined his mother and grandfather's worldview did not sit the same way with him as he got older. He began to think, quietly, about a different kind of future, one that involved school, structure, and eventually, he hoped, further education. Those doubts simmered for roughly 3 years before they came to a head. The breaking point, when it came, was almost mundane. Alex has said that in the days before he left, his mother told him the family needed to relocate again, this time to Finland. The two of them argued. Antoine Leroy would later tell reporters that Alex realized, in that moment, that this has to stop. Whether Melanie Batty knew her son intended to leave for good is not clear from the researched record. Leroy himself said investigators did not know how much she understood of his plans before he acted on them. What Alex told investigators immediately after his discovery, and what he would later admit was not entirely true, was that he set out on foot from a location in the mountains and walked for 4 days, sleeping during the day and moving at night to avoid being seen, carrying around 100 euros, determined to reach a city large enough to have a British embassy where he could ask for help. He said he wanted to get to Toulouse without encountering many people along the way. Alex would later tell The Sun, in an interview given after his return to the UK, that the 4-day walking journey he initially described to French police was not accurate. He said he fabricated the details of his route and its duration in an effort to prevent officers from being able to trace his mother and grandfather's location. The true circumstances of how he came to be on that particular road, in that condition, at that hour, were not fully clarified in the sources reviewed for this video. Whatever the exact path that led him there, It was on that dark, rain-soaked road near Revel, in the early hours of the 13th of December 2023, that Fabian Accidini's headlights found him. Alex was taken first to a local police station and then to a center for minors in Toulouse, where French authorities began working with British counterparts to confirm his identity. He was, by every account from the medical and social workers who examined him, in good physical health, showing no visible signs of abuse. Toulouse's prosecutors said their office had been in contact with British investigators from the outset, and that the case, a British missing person, found on French soil, allegedly abducted by family members with no legal claim to him, would ultimately be led by Greater Manchester Police. The identity confirmation happened quickly. On the 14th of December, Alex spoke to his grandmother by video call. Susan Caruana confirmed, with a certainty 6 years of hoping could not manufacture on its own, that the young man on the screen was her grandson. Assistant Chief Constable Chris Sykes of Greater Manchester Police told reporters the family was greatly relieved and that returning Alex to British soil safely was now the force's primary priority. He added that officers still had some work to do in establishing the full circumstances surrounding his disappearance and where he has been in all those years, a statement that, in hindsight, undersold just how complicated some of those circumstances would turn out to be. At a press conference the following day, Antoine Leroy laid out what French authorities understood of the intervening years: the moves through Morocco, Spain, and the Pyrenees, the spiritual community, the reincarnation discussions, the solar panels. He also passed along something else Alex had told them, that his grandfather, David Batty, had died roughly 6 months earlier, and that his mother, Melanie, may have already left for Finland, the country she had wanted to relocate the family to. Susan Caruana traveled to be reunited with her grandson, as arrangements were made for his return to England. On the 16th of December 2023, Alex Batty met a family member and officers from Greater Manchester Police at Toulouse-Blagnac Airport before boarding a flight to the UK via Amsterdam, accompanied throughout by British police to ensure his safety on the journey home. He landed in Manchester that evening, his first time back on British soil in more than 6 years. 6 years, 2 months, and 5 days after he was last confirmed seen at the port of Málaga, Alex Batty was home. The return was not the end of the story, only a new chapter of it, one shaped as much by what Alex chose not to say, at first, as by what he did. In the days and weeks that followed, Alex gave interviews to British outlets in which he began to walk back parts of what he had told French police. He admitted that the escape story he gave investigators, the 4 days of walking, the careful avoidance of other people, was not the full truth, and that he had invented details deliberately to make it harder for police to track down and arrest his mother and grandfather. He confirmed that both of them were alive, that his claim about his grandfather's death had been fabricated for the same reason. He told reporters he did what he needed to do to protect them, adding later, in a documentary interview, that he did not like lying but felt he had no choice at the time. His fear, he explained, was not abstract. He worried that if his mother and grandfather were arrested as a direct result of what he told police, he might not be welcomed back by his grandmother, or that he could end up in the care system rather than in the home he had spent 6 years trying to return to. Greater Manchester Police opened a formal criminal investigation into the alleged abduction on the 22nd of December, 2023, focused on Melanie and David Batty, both of whom remained unlocated. Investigators pursued leads across France and reportedly Morocco, working to trace 2 adults who had spent 6 years demonstrating an unusual capacity to live without leaving an official footprint. No arrests were made. On the 22nd of January 2025, more than a year after Alex's return, Greater Manchester Police formally closed the investigation. A police spokesperson said the case had been dropped because Alex and his family did not support continuing it, and because there was no realistic chance of prosecution. Detective Superintendent Matt Walker said the force believed the right thing to do is bring closure to this chapter of Alex and his family's lives, particularly as this is the outcome they wished for. No charges were ever filed against Melanie Batty or David Batty. Neither has been convicted of any offense in connection with Alex's disappearance, and under the presumption of innocence that applies to anyone never charged or convicted, no wrongdoing can be legally attributed to either of them beyond what remains, formally, an unresolved allegation. Since his return, Alex has lived with his grandmother, Susan Caruana, in Oldham, the same home, in effect, that he was traveling away from when he vanished at 11. He turned 18 in 2024 and has spoken about wanting to catch up on the schooling he missed during 6 years with no classroom, motivated in part by ambitions to study at college. He has said he does not consider what his mother and grandfather did to him to be the work of a cult, describing the community they belong to as sincere in its beliefs rather than malicious in its intent, even as he has been candid that he ultimately chose to leave it behind for a different kind of future. Susan Caruana, for her part, has said publicly that she does not want either her daughter or her former son-in-law to face prison over what happened, a wish that, in the end, the investigation's closure granted her, whether or not it answered every question the case first raised. Alex Batty's disappearance began with a family holiday that was supposed to last a week. It lasted 6 years, spanned 3 countries, and ended with a stranger's headlights finding a haggard teenager on a mountain road in the rain. What happened in between? The spiritual community, the solar panels, the meditations on reincarnation, the slow turn of a boy's mind toward a different kind of life, and the lies he told to protect the 2 people who had kept him from home, is, by his own admission, still not told in full. Some of it may never be. There is no tip line to share at the close of this one. The investigation Greater Manchester Police opened into Alex's disappearance is closed, brought to an end at the family's own request, and Alex Batty is, today, simply a young man living the life he once had, to walk out of the mountains in the rain to reach. Every case deserves an answer. Every family deserves the truth. If this story moved you, subscribe to The Silent Evidence for more cases like it. Real people, real families, told with the care they deserve.